Are you a good communicator? George Bernard Shaw once said the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. Welcome to the Value Added Podcast. My name is Jared.
My name's Bill.
And today we're going to be discussing and talking about how to communicate effectively as a leader, specifically one way communication. So we're going to call this informational communication. Is that correct, Bill?
Yeah, exactly. So we're actually going to do a kind of a two-parter here. Today, we're going to be talking about, as Jared said, informational or one-way communication. And next episode, we're going to be talking about interactive communication and conversations with people and some best practices around both of those. Just as a call out, communication is the number one way that we can influence people. It's the number one vehicle we use to influence people, to help them develop and grow, is communication. Some circumstances that you may find yourself in using one-way communication could be just something you're instructing or teaching. You're trying to persuade someone of something. You're trying to set a vision or direction of the organization. Or maybe you're trying to create a culture in your organization by establishing some values and you want to communicate those values. And there's vehicles, right? There's different ways you're going to do one-way communication. It can be through email, right? We all know about email. It could be just an announcement you need to give, quick, simple, easy, right? And then there's more of a presentation, instruction, TED Talk kind of style of communication. Those are the different vehicles.
I think it would be helpful to really bring down and give you specifics, just examples of and reasons for one-way communication that kind of fall under this instruction or persuasion, vision, direction, values, kind of casting that kind of information forward into whatever organization you're in, whatever position you find yourself in. So, and then talking about the vehicles, we're going to give you just a list of reasons that one-way communication, while often think is less desirable than two-way communication, it still holds its place in various scenarios. So we're going to go with, I think, the top 5 reasons we think that one-way communication might be a preferred approach.
An optimal way of going about it in these circumstances.
Exactly right. So Bill, what's the first one? Give the first one.
Yeah, first one is efficiency and speed. Just when information needs to be disseminated out quickly and efficiently to a large audience, large group, then one way can be the most effective way, right? Then there's not time for or availability for that conversation back and forth. That may slow things down. Hey, we got to get this goal done. Here's how we're going to do it. Here are the assignments to do it. And you just push that. That's one reason for good, we hear the emergencies, public alerts or announcements, weather, warnings, hurricane, we've all seen or heard something, just a push of information.
Right.
So just kind of a mass email campaign that you need to get this information out. So efficiency and speed is the first one.
Yeah. So it could be so helpful. And number 2 would be clarity and consistency, right? So this is situations where a precise message really needs to be delivered consistently without the risk of misinterpretation. So one-way communication can ensure that everyone receives the exact same information. And this can be crucial, if you're in the legal world or something of that nature. Again, emergency services announcements and things like that. But safety protocols, standard instructions, you run the risk sometimes of giving 2 to 3 to 4-way communication. People are hearing you differently. So if it's really something you want to be consistent and concise about, having it written down, then you're able to go back and say, well, as per the last email, those kinds of conversation. So one-way conversations or information communication, clarity and consistency can be one of those reasons for one-way.
Yeah. So we have efficiency and speed, then clarity and consistency. The third one could be cost effectiveness. This is not a situation where you're trying to adopt or get people to adopt into a new understanding, value, or direction, and you're having roundtables to get feedback. It takes time, that takes effort, and that takes time away from people from doing their main tasks or their responsibilities,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So cost effectiveness wise, just compared to two-way, it's a lot more efficient. Simply put, one-way communication can be more cost effective. It's really true that mass communication approach that we talked.
Yeah.
So something to keep in mind if you're running an organization or a dollar is something that you're measuring and impacting. I'm in the help desk industry,
Yeah.
right? And I've been in the help desk industry for 24 years, going on 25. Um, there is a formula for cost effectiveness for phone advisors of how quickly they answer calls and how many they can answer. We know and we can measure the value of that down to how much they cost per minute. And the help desk environment is not a revenue generating business. It's about helping customers with products they already bought. We don't create revenue, right? Selling the products, or we're fixing issues, concerns, questions, problems they have with the products. So it really does come down to that cost effectiveness approach.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that one-way communication, it's all about cost effectiveness.
Yeah. Number 4 would be limited need for response. So this is one of those, hey, this meeting could have been an email, right? And so we've all been in those meetings where you're thinking, oh my goodness, man,
Been a couple of those this week.
the boss kind of becomes a chatty Cathy, and you're all sitting thinking, this could have been in an email. So limited need for response. When the primary goal, is to inform or again, instruct, the audience or whoever's receiving this information, without requiring immediate feedback or even confirmation, right? One-way communication is sufficient and really effective in that realm. This could include, again, just announcement, broadcast, display public information or what have. Schedules, road closures are kind of one of those things, you're looking at. I just need the information. Just give me the information. So when there's a limited need for a response, and I find this interesting is we have, a particular role, we have group chats, like it's nobody's business. It's a group chat for this group chat for this group chat for this group, because I oversee different groups of people. And I find it funny that when even with the one-way communication vehicles, like those one-way chats and one of your email chains, you'll throw the information on there. Sometimes there will be responses. Again, this is simply a vehicle. And again, limited need for response. One-way communication is really efficient.
It is. So far we have efficiency and speed, number 1. Number 2, clarity and consistency. Number 3, cost effectiveness. Number 4, limited need for a response. Number 5, a controlled environment. Sometimes emotions are going to run high, and there are times to stop, slow down, and help people work those emotions. But there's other times where the organizational goals are going to take temporarily a priority to make sure the objective is accomplished that you're trying to do, or get the product at the door, or there's all these temporary situations where for a time we're running at peak performance or higher to accomplish this goal, and things settle down and then you can come back around. So a controlled environment helps prevent from a lot of those motions running away, from holding back the goal, the objective, the price point, pushing the product out the door. It can be relevant in managing news about critical decisions for topics that are kind of sensitive for a number of people.
Right.
So while not necessarily the most frequent reason for using one-way communication, certainly valid is having a controlled environment to do that. Very important, very key.
I find it really helps when I'm working with those teams I mentioned, because there's a number of them, that everyone's on the same page, and the one-way communication is really crucial for that. Everything from, hey, here's the objectives that we all agreed on as a team at the beginning of this quarter or the season or what have you. And we can keep referring back to, are we reaching our goals that we have, or and here they are. Everybody has that same information, and keep them, and you push them out every so often as reminders. But again, these are just good vehicles and opportunities to use concise and clear one-way communication. But there's an important reminder, Bill, you wanted to give as well, I think.
Yeah, a couple of reporting reminders. One, done in our notes, I'm going to add it's freebie bonus, is that you may actually find a single event where you're doing different multiple styles of communication, both one way and then switching into interactive, then switching into something else, right? So I lead a weekly team meeting where first is, kind of a, hey, how's everybody doing? What's an icebreaker question, get conversation
Personal
going,
updates.
personal updates, right? Just something fun to lighten the mood. And then we get into some business announcements. And then we talk through some questions about the announcements. And then in the end, it's back to your, what do you all have to bring to the table? What questions do you have? Do you want a round table
Back to the
kind of
interactive
thing?
part.
Yeah. You go one by one. Do you have anything? Do you have any questions, any concern, anything you want to, and just go through. So one-way communication is part of that event, but it's not the sole structure of that event, the single way of doing that event in its entirety. So just a reminder, it may be a tool to use for a time, and then you transition out of it or into it and out of it again.
Right.
But some reminders, one-way communication is not a universal solution.
Yeah.
There is going to be intentional, purposeful reasons to not use one-way communication.
Absolutely. Yeah.
As I mentioned before, if the emotions are high and we need to address this, the concern on, we have to slow down and we have to address those emotions.
Well, that I think, when we make the mistake, I think as leaders, of sending certain emails or messages when emotions in the office or in the workplace or the organization are high like that.
Right.
If it's a correcting someone behavior and you're putting that in a mass email,
Go back to
You know,
connect before you
right.
correct.
Go back to the whole idea of connecting. Sometimes just peeling back the layers and reviewing why, this is happening. That's where you might want to pause and think, is the one-way communication. We'll probably talk a little bit more about that in the next episode.
Well,
Yeah, definitely a great disclosure.
So first, you might not a universal solution, right? Number two, it's generally less effective for building relationships. Big surprise there.
Right.
We talked about, we have an episode about connecting before you correct someone. Great leaders need to have both. They need to be able to be honest, sincere, and clear in communicating those facts, but also empathetic, right? Care and candor. You can't be a great leader without having, if you leave one to the side, then you're going to be doing yourself, those following you, and your organization a disservice. So generally less effective about building relationships, fostering engagement, or solving complex problems. You may need to have a kind of a brainstorming session to come up with a solution. And, one-way communication is certainly not a way to do a brainstorming unless you want to be an audience in the meeting of one person, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, one-way communication can be a valuable and efficient tool for those 5 previous reasons we mentioned above. It has its place, it has its time, but it's not either.
Yeah. Excellent disclosures, I think. So we're going to jump into the skills that are kind of required for good, healthy one-way communication. This is obviously anybody can compose an email, but can you do it efficiently? And, can you do it with a little bit of tact, and wisdom and follow through and forethought and all those, big words we like to throw around as leaders. So some skills I think that are probably required for good, healthy one-way communication. Accuracy is necessary would be one. This would be a big one. Being able to write something out or present something one way that is accurate, that is necessary. And we kind of look at this being either overinflated or undervalued.
Right. We don't want to make it bigger than it is, right? But we don't want to make it's not that big of a deal. But by the way, we want it accurate at the level it needs to. We don't want to make things appear bigger than they are. Then we don't want to make them less important than they are either. So accuracy.
And you've probably received the email where it's like, whoa, it was just the water cooler. It tipped over. We didn't need a mask. But if the carpet got wet. And I'm being facetious here, but that's kind of what we're talking about. Overinflating something is not really a good idea. Undervaluing is bad as well. So just accurate to what you're trying to communicate. And then simplicity is very important. Simplicity is, I think, often overlooked by a lot of leaders, managers, what have you. It's too wordy. It's too long. I'm not going to read an email that should be a meeting, and I'm not going to go to a meeting that should be an email. Right? So it's kind of, we use a couple thoughts on
Well,
that.
yeah, the simple rule of thumb is fifth grade reading
Right.
level or below, right? You want to keep it simple. And they're online tools. You can go put some text in and it'll tell you at what reading level it's, what grade level. That might really help you keep your communication simple, because the simpler it is, the more people will catch, understand, and get on board with, hopefully, your communication of what you're trying to get across, and retain it as well. So there are online tools for that. So just keeping it simple is important.
It's funny. That reminds me of a good friend of mine years ago. I think we were fresh out of high school, and he was, between what he was going to do with his life. And we asked, "Hey, where did you, what were you doing this?" Where he's like, "Oh, I was a petroleum transferal engineer." Petroleum transferal engineer. So we're all like, well, look, we got excited. He was pumping gas at the local gas station. Petroleum transferal engineer, right? That he worded it in such a way to make him, and it was just, it's simple, but again,
It's a little
facetious, but
overinflated.
little overinflated.
Yeah.
So simplicity is key, but kudos to him for that one. Clarity is key.
Well, that's example right there. It was very clear,
It wasn't
right?
very clear. So, boosting his street cred with petroleum transferal engineer.
Yeah.
But building credibility with accuracy is kind of the end goal. We're talking about communicating one way, in the sphere of leadership or adding value to people, right? So building credibility with accuracy is really beneficial for a leader.
Yeah. If you're looking for one takeaway from this episode, I think that would be one of them anyways. Build your credibility with clarity. Don't things bigger than they are, and don't make them, there's a famous football coach who gave the piece of it. I can't remember the name, but forgive me. Maybe someone can in the comments. The best piece of advice: don't listen to your greatest fans. They think you're better than you are.
All right. Yeah.
Don't listen to your worst critics. They think they're worse than you are. Reality, you want to be listening to someone who's going to speak honestly and with clarity into your lives. And that's that kind of the theme here. We want that clarity, and building your credibility with that accuracy
Right.
is going to be key in doing that for others.
And again, too, just a reminder, these are skills, again, you can find online to help, but it's something you want to grow in. I'm constantly, for me, one of the practices that I use is I have an admin who works kind of directly with me or underneath me, if you want to say that. And, she'll run her emails by me at times. I'll run mine by her. I even use my wife sometimes. A sensitive, email. Should this be, nope, this one should be a conversation, not going to send this. Or, yeah, that's really good. You composed it really well. Got your 3 main points. And so you have people, you should have people around you that you can even filter some of the content, one-way content through, I think is helpful as well.
And to add on to that, high emotion is the enemy of accuracy. Let me say that again, because that's important.
Super important.
High emotion is the enemy of accuracy. If you're really high emotion and you're about to go compose an email,
Delete.
compose it and then save it in your drafts,
Yeah.
and then come back later and read it again. Is it really conveying with accuracy what it needs? Now,
Right.
maybe this is what you want in the moment, right? What really would be best for the accuracy?
Super important, because we tend to add things when we're in a state of high emotion, even words, even punctuation.
And
Right.
we tend to react rather than respond, right? To when we talked about that before.
Or email or written communication actually has a way of worsening, if it is that a word, worse?
Well,
It makes it worse,
Yeah.
right? If your emotions are high, because people already tend to read information
And reread it
and reread it, and they're I don't know what I'm trying to say. They're piling emotions onto what you're reading, or they're reading something really wasn't.
It will work them off more and more,
Right.
because
Right.
it's now a paper trail, right? It's now, you can't go back. That email is sent. You can't withdraw it and change it. Oh, I didn't mean to say that. Once words leave you, you can't get them back.
Yeah.
You really can't. Once they're gone, they're gone. They're out there for people to interpret the way they want to interpret it through their emotion.
Yeah. Have you ever said something you wish you didn't say? That's worse than anything.
The number of times I've composed an email and go, I probably should send this right now. And I stop and I come back or I send it to a friend, a really trusted, close ally, partner, friend. All right. I'm really mad at the moment. I'm really sad at the moment. I'm really frustrated at the moment. Could you read this and filter out
Exactly.
my emotion from it and make sure you give me some edits? It's fully bringing the facts, the accuracy of what I'm trying to do. Great resources. Go to someone else and have them edit your emails for you, your drafts.
I think that's why one-way communication has its place. It has its place with, those 5 reasons we mentioned, announcements, things that need limited responses. And if it's a high emotion, you're sending it, you're begging for a response, in a bad way. So that's just, again, I know we don't want to over talk this point, but it is really crucial as leaders to understand when is it appropriate for one-way communication? When is it not appropriate? And if we're going to go with one, way communication is going to be accurate, clear, concise, appropriate.
We've both been burned. That's maybe why we're
We're
kind of coming down on this a little more often.
we're passionate.
We're passionate about it, right?
Yeah.
And we don't want you to experience the mistakes we've made in this area. So be very careful with your accuracy, build your credibility.
Yeah, I'll give one more short, because we keep, in the last couple episodes, I think we mentioned this, Bill, that leadership parallels parenting in so many ways, right? And so I'm thinking right now this is in our notes, but my 2 children, they are both girls entering into, their teenage years now, and they recently received their first cellular device, right? And so they're able to text their friends and message and play games online with each other. Of course, we filter stuff, but this is one of the lessons they're learning. We sit down, every so often and talk about, what are you texting? What are you saying? Because you can't get those words back. In the days of social media, people can just screenshot. Even if you delete, it already went through. They can use that as.
In 10 years from now, they can go back and up again.
Oh, I'm working with you. I knew you in high school. Here's some of the things people are so, and they hold grudges for a long time, even if you make amends. So again, in the business world, in the workplace, you want to make sure you filter really well your one-way communication. Bill, give us some context. I think
Yeah, well, context is the key. Context is important, right? Are you in a situation where you're sending an email? Are you giving a presentation? Are you doing a speech, so to speak? Right. One of the key pieces of advice we've read recently was to walk slowly through the crowds. John Maxwell wrote that in his book, 16 Undeniable Laws of Communication, right? And when you walk slowly through the crowd, you're building rapport, you're making those connections, and they're going to be more open and receptive to what you're communicating, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing, context, Simon Sinek, I'll give him this great, popular, blown up, amazing video talking about why. Start with why. But sorry, Simon, I was doing that long before your speech, raising my kids.
Good reminder.
Right? Good reminder. But a very good reminder. Whenever my kids came to me, hey, can we go and do this on Tuesday night? I would start with the why before I would say the answer, yes or no. And the why was, well, we already promised Pop we would come visit him now.
True.
So no, we can't, but maybe we can find another time. So starting with why in your communication draws and buys people in. That's not something new. You'll Google it, you'll come across it, you'll hear it again and again. But I can't tell you how powerful and relevant and helpful it is to do just that, starting with why.
I think again, as leaders, we find ourselves in positions where we do have to send, it seems like, a lot of information. You're always pushing emails, you're always forwarding things, you're always going to make these announcements. And so it's going to be a practice. It's going to take a little bit of practice and skill and adding tools in your toolbox to really understand and come to a place where you're really good with one-way communication. I'm still working.
Yeah, and same here. I'm still learning and I could have done that better. I'm already thinking about how this podcast could have been done better from the beginning.
I yeah,
Eye contact. You want to think about eye contact. You
yeah,
want to think about body language. You want, emotion, your tone of voice, how you're expressing what, when. That's all the context, right? Whether if that's verbal communication one way or is it written, you want to make sure you're using it well, intentionally, and accurate.
absolutely. So we got just a little bit of application for you. I think this is going to be super simple, but it needs to be consistent with practice. So practicing accuracy, simplicity, and clarity. Again, that's all we're going to give you today.
Yeah.
Practice being accurate, being simple, being clear.
Do you have a team meeting coming up? Do you know you're about to leave and go send an email or go have an announcement to your business? Like, hey, this is a project we're working,
Right.
right? So there's your opportunity. Go and practice the accuracy, simplicity, right, in that
Yeah.
moment.
And again, drop some comments, reach out. If you're like, hey, do you have any more information on this? We'd love to chat, love to help you even more. Again, we don't claim to have all the answers, but we've been doing this a while and we'd love to help. So,
We're going to share the journey with you as we learn things. We're going to share it with you as we make our mistakes. We're going to share that with you. We're just going to sit here and be authentic about our own leadership journey, where it's been, where it is, and where it's going.
so one-way communication. Good luck with that. Again, practice accuracy, simplicity, and clarity. And thanks so much for joining us on the Value Added Podcast. And we will see you.
Thanks for your time.